The Academy of Blades stood like a silver fortress under the twin suns of Varex Prime. Inside its tall walls, warriors from 100 species trained to master the art of the sword. They came from every corner of the galaxy, each with their own traditions, their own pride, their own strength. And yet, one rule united them all. No species could ever dual-wield plasma blades. It wasn't just a rule. It was a law written in blood and failure. Every attempt in history had ended the same way, with death. But one human girl didn't believe in limits. Her name was Lyra Kane. Lyra stood alone on the empty training platform. Her reflection shimmered on the polished floor, the glow of the blade in her hand casting soft blue light across her determined face. Around her, holographic statues of alien masters watched silently, each one frozen in perfect combat stance. She could still hear her instructor's voice echoing in her mind. Humans can barely handle one blade, Kane. Dual-wielding will burn your nervous system. You'll die before the second swing. She had heard those words 1,000 times. Every time, they cut deeper than any sword. Lyra wasn't born strong, but she had something others didn't, a quiet fire that refused to go out. That night, the Academy's lights dimmed as training hours ended. Students of other races laughed and talked in their dorms, mocking the small human who dared to think she could stand among them. But Lyra stayed behind. The doors to the training hall hissed open with a low hum. Inside, the silence was heavy, sacred, almost. She looked around to make sure no one was watching. Then, she opened the weapons vault. There it was. A second plasma blade, glowing faint purple, humming with restrained power. Her heartbeat quickened. Her hands trembled. Every instructor had warned her, holding 2 blades at once would overload her neural system. The human brain wasn't made for it. But she couldn't stop thinking, why not? Lyra took a deep breath. The first blade came alive with a low hum. The second followed, flashing bright white as it ignited. Instantly, the air thickened with energy. The lights flickered. The floor beneath her boots vibrated as if the room itself could feel what she'd done. For a moment, it felt like the galaxy stopped breathing. Then, pain. A blinding flash tore through her mind. Her muscles locked, her vision shattered into colors. Every cell screamed. But she didn't let go. She forced herself to stay standing, forcing her arms to move. One swing, then another. And suddenly, the pain started to fade. Her body began to adapt. Each movement felt smoother, faster, sharper, like the swords were no longer weapons, but parts of her. The 2 glowing blades moved in perfect rhythm, twin arcs of light slicing through the air. Somewhere in the control room above, alarms began to blare. Red warning lights flashed. The Academy's sensors had detected something impossible. Within seconds, guards flooded the hallway. They shouted orders, running toward the training hall. Lyra didn't stop. She was lost in the rhythm, her breath steady, her eyes glowing faint blue. From the observation deck, Commander Ravon watched in disbelief. His reptilian eyes widened as he studied the monitor. The human girl's vitals were off the charts, her heart rate stable, her neural signals synchronized. "This isn't possible," he whispered. 4 years, Ravon had trained elite warriors. He'd seen aliens tear through steel and crush ships with their minds. But never, never, had anyone survived dual resonance. And yet there she was, a single human, defying every law written in galactic combat history. "Seal the hall." Ravon barked into his communicator. Now. Down below, Lyra stopped moving. Her vision cleared, her breathing heavy. Both blades still hummed in her hands, but they no longer felt heavy. They felt alive, like they were waiting for her next command. The training hall doors slammed open. Dozens of soldiers surrounded her, their weapons raised. "Drop the blades, cadet," one shouted. Lyra turned slowly. Her eyes glowed brighter now, reflections of 2 suns burning within. She looked at the nearest guard, then down at her own hands. The blades didn't feel like plasma anymore. They felt connected like threads of her own soul. She spoke quietly, her voice trembling but steady. "You said it was impossible." No one moved. Even the guards hesitated. The air was vibrating, the sound of her dual blades filling the silence like a heartbeat. Commander Ravon stepped forward through the crowd. He stared at Lyra, his expression unreadable. "You should be dead," he said. Lyra met his gaze. "Maybe I should," she replied softly. "But I'm not." The two stared at each other. Around them, the soldiers waited, unsure whether to fire or flee. Then, without warning, the lights exploded, a surge of energy burst from the blades, throwing everyone backward. The walls flickered with holographic runes, ancient symbols no one could recognize. Ravon shielded his eyes as the glow intensified. When the light finally faded, Lyra was standing in the center of the room, both blades still active, her hair floating slightly from static energy. Her voice was calm now, almost too calm. "Tell me, Commander, what if humans were never meant to follow the rules?" Silence. The guards exchanged uncertain glances. Ravon slowly lowered his weapon. He could see it now, the truth that frightened every alien scholar for centuries. Humans weren't the weakest species. They were the most unpredictable. They adapted faster. They broke limits others feared to test. And Lyra Kane had just proven it. Moments later, a team of scientists rushed into the hall. They surrounded Lyra, taking readings, scanning her vitals. The system data glitched and failed. The machines couldn't understand what they were seeing. Ravon turned to one of the officers. "Lock this place down. No one outside this station can know what happened here." The officer nodded, fear clear in his eyes. Ravon looked back at Lyra. She stood quietly, the blade still humming, the blue glow reflecting in her calm but defiant gaze. He took a slow breath and whispered under it. "You shouldn't have done that, Lyra. Now they'll come for you." The alarms stopped. The training hall fell silent again, but something had changed, something far greater than anyone understood. In the shadows above, hidden security drones recorded everything, transmitting it across unknown channels, to watchers beyond the stars. And far away, in the cold void of space, something ancient stirred, reacting to the impossible act of a single human who dared to raise both blades. The galaxy had just felt its first tremor. And it began. With her. The cell was cold. No sound, no light, just the soft hum of machines keeping watch. Lyra sat on the steel floor, her wrists bound by magnetic cuffs. A faint red glow pulsed under her skin, a sign of the energy that still burned within her veins since the night she held both blades. It had been 3 days. 3 days since the impossible happened. 3 days since she broke the oldest rule in galactic combat. Outside the cell's glass wall, guards whispered to each other. Some looked at her with fear. Others with something closer to awe. None dared to speak to her. Only one man had the authority to. Commander Ravon. From the observation room above, Ravon stood silently, arms crossed behind his back. The monitors around him showed Lyra's vitals, heartbeat steady, neural energy still off the charts. He had seen this kind of power once before. And he had sworn it would never happen again. The door hissed open behind him. Dr. Vesh, a tall alien with metallic skin and glowing eyes, entered carrying a data tablet. "Commander," Vesh said. "Her readings are stable. Too stable. No species has ever recovered from dual resonance. Yet she seems completely unharmed." Ravon didn't look away from the screen. "She's human," he said quietly. "They adapt faster than we expect." Vesh frowned. "Adapt? No. This is more than adaptation. Look." He turned the monitor. It showed a wave pattern, pulsing evenly in rhythm with Lyra's heartbeat. This synchronization means her body accepted the dual-core energy. She didn't reject it, she merged with it. Ravon's jaw tightened. That was the one thing he'd hoped never to hear. Inside the cell, Lyra opened her eyes. The glass wall reflected her tired face, dark circles under her eyes, her once clean cadet uniform now torn. But behind the exhaustion, her gaze was steady. She remembered the moment it happened. The pain, the light, the silence after the explosion. And then, the power. It hadn't felt evil or wild. It had felt right. Like it had always been waiting for her. She lifted her hands slightly, feeling a faint spark of energy dance between her fingers. The cuffs glowed, suppressing it instantly. I didn't break the rule, she whispered to herself. The rule was wrong. A sharp hiss broke the silence as the door to her cell slid open. Ravon stepped in, his expression unreadable. He stopped in front of her, his long coat brushing the floor. Stand, he ordered. Lyra hesitated, then obeyed. The cuffs made her movements slow. Ravon studied her face, then looked down at the faint light flickering beneath her skin. You've caused quite a storm, cadet, he said quietly. Do you have any idea what you've done? Lyra's voice was steady. I survived. That's not survival, Ravon snapped. That's mutation. You touched a power your body was never meant to handle. Lyra took a step forward. Then why am I still alive? Ravon didn't answer. His silence was louder than any word. Behind the observation glass, Dr. Vesh watched closely, recording everything. Lyra's human eyes met Ravon's cold reptilian stare. For a long moment, neither spoke. Finally, Ravon sighed. You think you're the first to try this, he said. You're not. The galaxy has seen thousands die trying to control two blades. And not just humans, the strongest races, the purest warriors. They all failed. He paused, voice dropping lower. But there was one exception. Lyra frowned. What do you mean? Ravon turned away. It doesn't matter. She's gone. And the last time someone like her appeared, entire colonies were wiped out. Lyra's heart skipped. Someone like me? Ravon's hand tightened behind his back. You should never have survived, Kane. Your existence will attract attention. Dangerous attention. From who? She asked. He looked at her then, really looked at her, and his eyes showed something she'd never seen before. Fear. That night, while the guards changed shifts, Ravon sat alone in his office. The only light came from a holographic screen, displaying old classified files. He opened a locked archive, Project Human Dawn. The file showed images of early experiments, human soldiers wired with energy conduits, their hands gripping twin plasma cores. Every record ended the same way: system failure, neural collapse, death. But one file was different. A woman with glowing blue eyes. Code name, Lyra, 0. The report ended abruptly. Subject vanished during testing. Presumed dead. Ravon closed the file, his hands shaking slightly. So the project never died, he muttered. They just waited. Meanwhile, Lyra sat awake in her cell. The hum of the station was louder tonight. Or maybe it was her senses sharpening. She could feel the energy pulsing in the walls, hear the faint static in the air. Something was changing, not just in her but around her. Suddenly, the lights flickered. Then, darkness. A mechanical voice echoed through the speakers. Containment breach detected. Sector 7 compromised. Lyra jumped to her feet. The cell door remained sealed, but alarms blared across the facility. She heard footsteps, shouting, then silence. Through the glass, she saw shadows moving, not guards. Something else. Her cuffs suddenly released with a metallic click. She froze. The door slid open. No one stood there. Just the sound of static and wind. Then a whisper came from the dark hallway. Move now. Ravon appeared, carrying a rifle and a small data drive. His uniform was half-burned, eyes sharp and urgent. Commander. Lyra started, but he cut her off. No time. They're here. Who's here? The Voidhounds, he said. They've found you. They ran through the narrow corridors of the academy, alarms screaming all around them. The once proud halls of the Blade Academy now burned with explosions and chaos. Ravon handed her a small case. Inside were her 2 plasma blades. Lyra's hands shook as she gripped them again. The blades hummed to life instantly, recognizing her touch. "How did you?" "I kept them hidden," Ravon said. "Because deep down, I knew this day would come." They reached the docking bay. The massive hangar doors opened to the void of space, and outside, dark ships hovered silently. Sleek, alien, predatory. The Voidhounds had arrived. "Get to the transport," Ravon shouted. Lyra turned to him. "Why are you helping me?" He didn't answer at first. Then, quietly, he said, "Because I was the one who helped create you." Lyra froze. The world around her seemed to vanish. "What did you say?" Ravon's voice was cold, filled with regret. "Your ability, your strength, it's not luck. You're part of the same experiment that destroyed the last generation. You're not supposed to exist." Lyra stared at him, her heart pounding. "You knew all this time." "I didn't know it was you," he said. "But when you held those blades, I saw the truth." An explosion tore through the hangar wall, cutting their conversation short. Fire and smoke filled the air. Ravon grabbed her arm. "No more questions. Run." As they sprinted toward the last surviving ship, Lyra looked back at the burning academy, her home, her past, crumbling into ruin. Somewhere in the chaos, she heard a deep, metallic voice through the comm systems. "Return the human, or your world burns." They leaped aboard the ship as the engines roared to life. The station shrank behind them, swallowed by fire. Lyra stood at the viewport, watching everything she'd ever known disappear. Ravon set the course and turned to her. "From this point on," he said quietly, "there's no going back. You need to know the truth about what you are." Lyra looked out at the stars. The stars outside the ship streaked into long silver lines as the vessel jumped into hyperspace. Lyra sat in silence, her thoughts spinning faster than the engines. She could still see the academy burning behind her, the only home she'd ever known. Now, everything was gone. Commander Ravon stood near the controls, his scales dimly reflecting the soft blue light from the console. His expression was unreadable, but his tail flicked slowly, a silent sign of tension. 4 hours, neither spoke. Only the low hum of the ship filled the air. Finally, Lyra broke the silence. "You said I was created. Part of an experiment." Ravon didn't turn around. "Yes," he said quietly. "The Human Dawn Project. Designed to evolve the human neural system, to link it with energy cores that most species can't even touch. You were meant to be a soldier who could channel impossible power." Lyra frowned. "Then why shut it down?" Ravon's eyes glowed faintly as he finally turned to her. "Because it worked too well. The first subjects lost control. They didn't die, they became something else. Something dangerous." Lyra's pulse quickened. "And you worked on this project?" He nodded once. "Until I saw what it did. I swore I'd never let it happen again." She looked down at her hands, the faint blue light still pulsing beneath her skin. "Then why am I different?" she whispered. Ravon didn't answer. He didn't have one. Suddenly, the ship's alarms blared. A red warning flashed across the console, tracking signal detected. Ravon's eyes widened. "No. Impossible. They found us." Lyra stood. "Who found us?" Before he could answer, the ship jolted violently. The stars outside shattered into normal space. A massive shadow appeared before them, a black ship, shaped like a blade, its hull rippling like liquid metal. Ravon's voice was grim. "The Voidhounds." The alien ship sent no transmission, no greeting, only a pulse of red energy that disabled their engines instantly. The smaller craft began to drift. "Can we fight them?" Lyra asked. Ravon shook his head. "No one fights the Voidhounds. They're hunters. Once they choose a target, It never escapes. A mechanical voice echoed through their comm system. Return the human. She carries what belongs to us. Lyra's heart pounded. What do they mean? They think your power came from them, Ravon said. And maybe, they're not entirely wrong. Before she could speak, a bright beam lanced through space, striking their ship. Panels burst into sparks. Gravity failed. They were being pulled in, captured. Inside the alien ship, darkness reigned. Lyra woke up in a circular chamber. The walls seemed alive, pulsing like veins. Ravon lay nearby, unconscious. Figures stepped out of the shadows. Tall, cloaked beings with smooth black armor and eyes like molten gold. Their movements were silent, predatory. One of them spoke, its voice echoing directly in her mind. Human child. You are the echo of our design. Lyra's voice trembled. What are you talking about? Long ago, before your kind left your world, we planted the code of resonance. We built your species as a vessel, a key. But your creators forgot. Lyra's breath caught. You're lying. Are we? The alien whispered. Then explain why your kind alone can touch two blades of power. Behind her, Ravon stirred. He stood slowly, glaring at the creatures. She's not your property, he growled. You, the alien turned its gaze on him, were one of us once. You betrayed your masters. Ravon's jaw tightened. I chose to protect what you fear, evolution. The alien's golden eyes narrowed. You cannot protect her from what she is becoming. Lyra felt heat spreading through her veins. The energy inside her was reacting to their presence. The walls began to shake. Ravon shouted, Lyra, control it. Don't let them. But it was too late. A blinding surge of light burst from her hands. The Voidhounds screamed as the energy wave tore through the chamber, shattering their armor like glass. When the light faded, the room was silent, scorched and broken. Ravon stared at her in shock. You just destroyed a Voidhound ship, he said. No one has ever done that. Lyra looked around, trembling. I didn't mean to. Ravon grabbed her shoulder. You don't understand, Kane. That power, it's calling to something bigger. You've just announced yourself to the entire galaxy. She swallowed hard. Then we run. Ravon nodded grimly. Yes. But there's only one place left to hide, the desert of rust. The ship barely held together as it fell through the dust-filled sky of a dying planet. The engine screamed, smoke trailing behind like black wings. Ravon struggled with the controls. Hold on, he shouted. Lyra gripped the seat as the ship slammed into the ground, skidding across red sand and metallic wreckage. The sound of twisting steel echoed for miles. When the smoke cleared, the ship was half buried in rust-colored dunes. They had arrived on Tessara, a dead world once home to a machine empire. Now, only ruins and silence remained. For days, they searched the wasteland. Twisted towers of steel rose from the sand like ancient bones. The wind howled across the empty plains, carrying whispers of forgotten wars. Lyra practiced with her blades every night. The energy felt more natural now, like breathing. Each swing left glowing trails of light in the air. Ravon watched from a distance. He saw how fast she was learning. Too fast. Slow down, he said one night. You're pushing too hard. Lyra didn't stop. If I don't learn to control this, it'll control me. Ravon frowned. Power without restraint destroys everything. Lyra turned, eyes glowing faint blue. Then teach me how to control it. He hesitated, then nodded slowly. Very well. But understand this, dual resonance isn't just strength. It's a bond. The blades read your soul. If your heart falters, they will turn on you. Days turned into weeks. Lyra learned to fight blindfolded, to feel energy through sound and air. She learned to strike faster than the eye could see. But at night, she heard voices in her dreams, whispers of an older power calling her name. One evening, while meditating in the ruins, she saw something strange, a shimmer of light in the sand. She dug it out and found a small crystal sphere. When she touched it, a voice echoed in her mind. "You are not the first, Lyra Kane, but you may be the last." The voice was calm, deep, and full of sorrow. "Who are you?" she whispered. "I am what remains of Captain Doran, the first human to hold 2 blades. Lyra froze. "That's impossible. You died centuries ago." "My body died. But my echo was preserved here, in this world of rust." The holographic image of a man appeared before her, tall, armored, his eyes glowing the same color as hers. "You must finish what I could not," he said. "The galaxy fears your kind because it remembers our failure. But humanity was never the mistake. We were the key." Ravon arrived, blaster drawn. "Step back from that thing." Lyra shook her head. "He's not attacking. He's trying to help." "The commander speaks truth," Doran said, turning to Ravon. "You carry the guilt of your past. You helped create us." Ravon's eyes narrowed. "And I watched you burn half a sector to ash." "Because we were incomplete," Doran replied. "Lyra is not. She carries the final code, the balance between instinct and control." Lyra looked at Ravon, confused. "What's he talking about?" Ravon's voice was heavy. The human dawn wasn't just a military project. It was a test, to see if humanity could evolve without losing itself. Lyra's grip tightened on her blades. "And now the test is back." Doran nodded. "The Voidhounds will return, stronger than before. When they do, you must be ready." The hologram flickered. "One last lesson, Lyra Kane. Dual-wielding is not about holding 2 blades, it's about holding 2 souls. One of light, one of shadow. Learn to balance them, or you will destroy yourself." The image faded into dust. Lyra stood in silence, the wind howling around her. Ravon stepped beside her, his gaze distant. "What now?" she asked softly. He looked at the endless horizon. "Now, we train. Because when the Voidhounds return, they won't be hunting you anymore." Lyra frowned. "Then who?" Ravon's eyes darkened. "They'll be hunting humanity itself." The night on Tessara was strange. The twin suns had set hours ago, but the desert still glowed faintly, not from light, but from energy deep beneath the sand. Lyra couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Captain Doran's face. The way he'd appeared, like light breaking through darkness, and the words he'd left behind. Dual-wielding isn't about power. It's about balance. She sat outside their makeshift camp, the 2 plasma blades lying in front of her. Their glow flickered softly in the dry wind. "Balance," she whispered. "I'm trying, Doran. But I don't even know what that means anymore." Ravon watched from a distance. He'd seen hundreds of soldiers break under pressure, but not her. Not once. There was something different about Lyra Kane. She wasn't the strongest, or the fastest. But she refused to give up. He walked over quietly and sat beside her. "You should rest," he said. She didn't look up. "I can't. Every time I close my eyes, I feel something moving inside me. Like a second heartbeat." Ravon frowned. "That's the dual-core energy stabilizing inside your system. It's merging with you." "Is that bad?" He hesitated. "It depends on who you ask." A sudden gust of wind blew across the dunes. Then, a faint sound. Like footsteps. Lyra instantly grabbed her blades. "Someone's here." Ravon raised his rifle, scanning the darkness. "No one could have tracked us." Before he could finish, a flash of blue light burst from the ground. From the dust rose a glowing figure, the same armored ghost from before. Lyra gasped. "Captain Doran?" The holographic warrior nodded slowly. "You called me, Lyra Kane. Your mind reached out to mine. Ravon muttered, impossible. She doesn't have the tech for psychic communication. Not tech, Doran said calmly. Instinct. He turned to Lyra. You seek control. You seek understanding. Then you must train, here, now. Lyra blinked. Train? With a hologram. Not a hologram, Doran said. An echo of willpower. My essence remains here, to teach what I failed to master. Without warning, Doran drew 2 spectral blades. They shimmered with a cold, ghostly light. Defend yourself. Lyra hesitated. Wait. But he lunged. His movements were impossibly fast. Lyra barely blocked the first strike, sparks flying as her blades met his energy. The sound echoed through the desert like thunder. She stumbled back. You're serious. Balance is not learned through peace, Doran said, pressing forward. Only through struggle. Each hit pushed her closer to the edge. She parried one strike, then another, but Doran's attacks grew faster, sharper. Her heart pounded, her breath quickened, her eyes glowed faintly blue. Finally, she shouted, and both blades exploded with energy. The ground shook. Doran froze mid-swing. Yes, he said softly. That's it. But control it. Don't let it consume you. Lyra tried, but the energy roared through her like fire. Her vision blurred. The sand around her started to rise into the air, spinning in a storm of light. Ravon shouted from a distance. Lyra! Stop! She screamed, and then, suddenly, everything went silent. When the dust settled, Lyra was on her knees, breathing heavily. The blades lay beside her, glowing faintly. Doran stood before her, unharmed. You have the strength, he said quietly. But strength without purpose is destruction. Lyra looked up, exhausted. Then tell me, what's my purpose? Doran's eyes glowed brighter. To finish what we began. To protect humanity from what's coming. The Voidhounds are only the beginning. Something far worse hides behind them, the Architects. Ravon stiffened. The Architects? That's a myth. No, Doran said. They are the ones who built the Voidhounds. They are the reason your kind was created, the reason she exists. Lyra stared. The reason I exist? You were designed, Lyra. Born from the fusion of 2 forces, human and void. You are the balance the Architects feared. Ravon's face darkened. You're saying she's part void energy? Yes, Doran replied. But not their slave, their opposite. Her power was meant to destroy them. Lyra stood slowly, shock turning to anger. So I'm just some weapon? A thing you made to fight your war? No, Doran said firmly. You are more than that. The weapon is your gift, but the choice of how to use it is yours. The air shimmered again as his image began to fade. Find the core beneath Tessara, he said. There lies the truth, and the key to ending this war. His voice grew distant. I will be waiting, within the echoes. And then he vanished. The silence that followed felt endless. The wind howled again, and the stars shimmered faintly through the red haze. Lyra turned to Ravon. He said the core. What is it? Ravon's expression was grim. A buried AI system, older than any known empire. Some say it's alive. Others, that it judges whoever reaches it. Lyra's eyes hardened. Then that's where we're going. Ravon hesitated. You don't understand, Kane. No one who's gone searching for the core has ever come back. She looked out at the endless desert, the glow of her blades reflected in her eyes. Then it's about time someone did. As they packed their gear, Ravon paused. Lyra. She turned. He looked almost human then, tired, uncertain. When we reach the core, you might learn things you won't like. About your past. About me. Lyra smiled faintly. Commander, at this point, I don't think there's much left that can shock me. He didn't answer. Because deep down, he knew there was. That night, as the twin moons rose, Lyra dreamed again. She saw two massive shapes, one made of light, one of shadow, circling above a dead world. Then a voice echoed through the void. When the blades unite, the stars will tremble. She woke suddenly, gasping for breath. Her hands were glowing. The desert stretched endlessly in every direction. For 3 days, Lyra and Ravon walked beneath the burning twin suns, guided only by Doran's last words echoing in their minds. Find the core beneath Tessara. There lies the truth. Every night, the sand whispered. Every night, Lyra felt the pull, something calling her deeper, beneath the planet's surface. By the 4th day, they reached a canyon so wide it seemed to cut the world in half. Below it lay darkness, a place untouched by light or time. This is it, Ravon said, scanning the chasm with his wrist device. Energy readings off the charts. Whatever the core is, it's down there. Lyra stared into the abyss. Then let's find it. They descended carefully through broken metal scaffolds and the bones of ancient machines. The deeper they went, the colder it became. The air shimmered faintly, charged with static energy. Finally, the tunnel opened into a vast underground city, completely silent. Giant towers leaned against each other like fallen monuments. Blue light pulsed through the cracks in the walls, as if the whole place still lived, barely. Lyra whispered, "What is this place?" Ravon replied quietly, "The last memory of the machine civilization. Before it destroyed itself." They moved through the ruins until they reached a great circular platform, a perfect metal disc with glowing lines running toward its center. A strange hum filled the air. The core was awake. Lyra stepped forward. It's alive." Ravon nodded slowly. "AI this old shouldn't be functional. Whatever powers it isn't technology, it's something else." Before Lyra could answer, the floor beneath them lit up. A bright beam of light shot upward, surrounding her completely. Ravon reached out. "Lyra!" She froze, not from fear, but from something stronger. A voice spoke in her mind, calm, vast, ancient. Identity confirmed. Lyra Kane, the last key of human dawn. Her eyes widened. "You know who I am. You were created here. Born from the synthesis of light and void, designed to unify what the architects divided." Lyra's breath caught. "The architects, they built this?" "Yes," the voice replied. "And they tried to erase it when they realized what it could become." Outside the beam, Ravon shouted, "Lyra! What's happening?" She turned toward him, her eyes glowing brighter than ever. "I can hear it, the core. It's talking to me." He aimed his rifle at the light. "Then tell it to stop before it kills you." The voice echoed again, deeper now, almost sad. "You misunderstand, Commander Ravon. The core does not kill. It remembers." The light around Lyra shifted, showing flashes of memory, laboratories, experiments, soldiers training with twin blades. Then she saw a familiar face, Ravon, younger, standing beside scientists. Lyra's voice trembled. You were there." Ravon froze. "Lyra. He was part of your creation," the core said. "He helped design the vessel that could bear the dual resonance." Lyra's chest tightened. "You knew all along." Ravon stepped closer, guilt heavy in his voice. "I didn't know it would be you. They said you were dead. The experiment failed." Lyra's expression darkened. "Then what am I, Ravon? A soldier? A weapon? A mistake?" He hesitated. "No. You're the only thing that went right." The core pulsed brighter, interrupting them. Conflict detected. Emotional resonance. Unstable. Initiating synchronization. Before either of them could react, beams of light shot from the floor, linking them both. Energy surged through their bodies, half human, half machine, and the entire chamber shook. Lyra gasped as visions flooded her mind, stars collapsing, alien ships burning, the architects watching from the void. Then a shadow appeared, a figure wrapped in black armor with glowing white eyes. "We gave them the gift of balance," the core said. "But they chose domination instead." Lyra whispered, "Who is that?" "The first architect. The one who betrayed creation itself, and he lives still." The light vanished. Lyra fell to her knees, trembling. Ravon caught her before she hit the floor. The core's voice softened. "The Voidhounds were his servants. Their goal was never to destroy you, Lyra, but to bring you back to him." Lyra looked up, her voice barely a whisper. "Why?" "Because you are the only one who can open the gate of origin, the path back to their realm." The chamber began to rumble, metal shaking all around them. Ravon shouted, "We need to go." But the core wasn't finished. "Listen, Lyra Kane. When the stars fall and the void calls your name, remember this: the power to end them lies not in your blades, but in your heart." The light flickered, then exploded outward in a wave of energy that tore through the ruins. When Lyra opened her eyes, she was lying on the surface again. The desert was quiet. The suns were rising. Beside her, Ravon sat up, covered in dust but alive. "What happened?" he asked. Lyra stared at the horizon. "The core showed me everything. Who I am. What they made me for." Ravon frowned. "And?" She turned to him, her voice steady. "They built me to open a gate." He froze. "A gate to what?" Lyra looked up at the morning sky, and for a moment, the light shimmered, revealing massive dark shapes moving far above the clouds. "To them," she said softly. "The architects." That night, while Ravon repaired the ship systems, Lyra stood alone on a dune. The wind carried a strange hum, the same tone as the core. She held both blades in her hands. They glowed faintly, resonating with her heartbeat. And somewhere deep within her, a new voice whispered, "Not the core, not Doran, but something darker. The gate will open, child of light and shadow, and when it does, all will kneel." Lyra's eyes narrowed. "Not if I can stop it." She ignited both blades, their glow cutting through the desert darkness like two sun. The morning sky above Tessara burned gold. But beneath that light, shadows moved. Dark shapes, silent and fast, cutting through the clouds, Voidhound ships. Lyra and Ravon stood near the half-repaired ship, watching them descend. "They found us," Ravon said quietly. Lyra gripped her blades. "Then they'll regret coming." The ground trembled as the first drop pods landed, scattering sand in violent waves. Black-armored figures emerged, their armor glowing with strange white veins. Their movements were mechanical, like puppets guided by something unseen. Ravon aimed his rifle. "There are too many." Lyra's eyes glowed faintly blue. "Then let's even the odds." She charged. The battle was chaos. Lyra moved like lightning, her twin blades slicing through armor and energy fields. Every strike pulsed with rhythm, every move a dance between control and fury. Ravon covered her from the cliffs, firing precision shots. The air filled with dust, plasma, and screams. But then, something new appeared, a Voidhound unlike the others. Taller, darker, with armor that shimmered like liquid shadow. It stepped forward slowly, carrying no weapon, just a single curved blade of light. Lyra froze as its voice echoed in her mind. "Child of balance, you should not exist." She took a step back. "Who are you?" "I am the Herald. The voice of the architects." Ravon shouted from above. "Lyra, don't listen to it." But it was too late, the air around her shimmered, and suddenly the world vanished. She stood in a void, no sound, no ground, no stars. Only the Herald stood before her, its mask glowing faintly. "You think you are human," it said softly. "But you are not. You are code and chaos woven into flesh. A fragment of what we lost." Lyra raised her blades. "Then you made a mistake. Because I'm not yours." The Herald tilted its head. You cannot fight what you are. Watch me. She swung, the blades cut through the darkness itself. The void cracked open like glass, and light flooded back in. Lyra gasped as she fell to her knees on the sand again. The herald was gone, but the voidhounds were retreating, disappearing into portals of shadow. Ravon ran to her. Lyra, you're bleeding. She looked down. Faint black lines were crawling up her arm, glowing like veins of darkness. I saw something, she whispered. A place beyond light. The herald. It spoke to me. Ravon's face darkened. What did it say? That I was part of them. He stepped back, eyes wide. Part of the architects. Lyra nodded slowly. Half of me comes from their energy. That's why I can control both blades. I'm the balance they tried to erase. They retreated to the canyon that night. The stars above were dim, as if watching in silence. Ravon sat beside her, cleaning his rifle. You know what this means, he said. If the herald spoke to you, then the architects know where we are. Lyra's voice was steady. Then we have to move before they arrive. He shook his head. It's not that simple. If they come, there's no running. They'll come through the gate. Lyra turned to him. Then we destroy it. Ravon frowned. Destroy the gate of origin? You don't even know where it is. Lyra looked toward the horizon. The core showed me. It's not just a gate, it's alive. Hidden under the dead ocean north of here. The next day, they reached the edge of that ocean, or what was left of it. It was a sea of glass, frozen mid-motion, reflecting the sky like a mirror. Beneath the surface, lights pulsed faintly, thousands of them, forming patterns that spiraled toward the center. Ravon stared in disbelief. This isn't an ocean. It's circuitry. Lyra nodded. The gate is under there. She stepped forward, pressing her hand against the glass-like surface. The ground trembled, and lines of light spread outward from her touch. A deep voice filled the air, calm, ancient, and endless. Gate of origin, key identified. Access permitted. The glass cracked, and the world fell open beneath them. They dropped into a massive chamber bathed in white light. At its center stood a ring taller than a mountain, suspended by energy streams. The ring rotated slowly, its core filled with swirling darkness. Lyra stared. That's it. The gate. Ravon whispered. It's beautiful. But beauty quickly turned to dread, because something moved inside the ring. A figure, large, humanoid, covered in obsidian armor. The air grew heavy as the being stepped through. You've come far, little echo, it said, its voice like thunder in her mind. Lyra's heart pounded. You're an architect. I am the first, it said. The one who shaped your kind, and the one who will reclaim you. Ravon raised his rifle. Over my dead body. The architect turned its glowing eyes toward him. That can be arranged. Before he could fire, the being waved its hand, and Ravon was thrown across the chamber like a rag doll. Ravon! Lyra screamed. He cannot help you, the architect said. You were made to open the path, not to fight it. Lyra raised both blades. Then maybe you made the wrong version. The chamber filled with light as she charged. Every strike echoed through the vast ring, sending ripples across the energy field. The architect blocked easily, its movements slow but impossibly strong. Still, Lyra kept fighting, each blow pushing her limits. You can't win, it said. You fight with human heart and void blood. You are conflict itself. Lyra smiled through the pain. Exactly. That's what makes me dangerous. She crossed her blades, and the energy between them exploded in a storm of blue and black fire. The architect staggered backward. For the first time, it looked surprised. Impossible, it whispered. No mortal can. Guess I'm not mortal, she said. The explosion tore through the chamber, shaking the ring and cracking the floor beneath them. When the light faded, the architect was gone, for now. The gate still pulsed, but slower, weaker. Ravon limped to her side. You did it. Lyra stared at the fading energy. No. I just made it angry. Above them, the entire chamber began to hum, like the sound of 1,000 voices whispering in the dark. Lyra looked up, her eyes glowing. The gate's waking up. Ravon grabbed her arm. Then we run. Lyra shook her head. No. We finish it.